I'm Sam Taggart with Can't Knock This, host of the first ever Door-to-Door Con, bringing professional collaboration to the direct selling and door-to-door industry. Go register your seat for our event, January 2018 at doortodoorcon.com. All right, everybody. I'm Sam Taggart with the DDD podcast, and this is Seth Kinzer. We're super excited to have this awesome guest today. He is one of Cutco's legends. He has done over $2.3 million of knives. Now, that's a hell of a lot of knives. Let's just be real. And he's been in the top 5 the last 4 years. This year, he'll finish top 3 in the company, and this is out of thousands of people. He'll finish over $550,000 of knife sales this year alone. And to put that in perspective, this is like one of the largest direct selling, direct to home companies in the world, and he's in the top 3. So super excited to have you on the show. This is going to be awesome. Yeah. I kind of want to start, let's rewind 8 years ago when you started, kind of the journey of you getting into this industry and your journey.
Yeah. So I started as a college kid. I was doing it as a summer job, and my first summer, I was like, even if I'm terrible at selling knives, I'll get some good experience. I'll get a really good set of knives for a really good discount. My first 10 days, I ended up selling over $10,000 worth of knives. And
put that into perspective.
Yeah, so that's like a standard of it's called your fast start. And in your first 10 days, like selling $10,000 worth of knives, it was basically like I ate, slept, breathed Cutco for the first 10 days. I had no life outside of that, and it was like what it really came down to was a commitment to doing the work necessary. Like my manager said, like if you can do 40 presentations with like the right, with qualified prospects, which is basically for Cutco, it's like a homeowner over 30 that's married. It's like if you can do 40 qualified, appointments, basically you can sell 10 grand. And I was like, I'm from a very blue collar like family and upbringing. I was like, I don't know if I can sell 10,000, but I commit to doing 40 appointments. And so my journey with Cutco has really been, that's been like my journey in life basically for the last 8 years, where it's been like this constant and never-ending like commitment to mastery of my craft, but also like a commitment to faith in action, like taking action and having faith that like with that action will come the results. And so I was like, I don't know if I can do that, but I did 40 appointments, and I ended up selling just a little over $10,000. From there, my first year, I did 2 years of college selling just in the summertime, and finished as one of the top college representatives in my time doing that. I ran an office for Cutco as a branch manager, and every time it was like, anytime I put a faith in work ethic and a faith in mastery, like those are my two of my major commitments. It's always worked out for me. And so one of my biggest plugs to anyone is that if you don't think something's possible, commit to work necessary, commit to the conduct necessary to be successful, and with faith that the results are going to come. So that was my journey. My first year selling full time, I sold $180,000 worth of Cutco kitchen knives, and since then, like every year, my sales have increased anywhere from 20 to 50%. And each year, when I've seen a big quantum leap, it's always been like I mastered a new part of the business. So for me, it's always been, where's my next edge? Where's my next? Where am I lacking a skill set that I could get better at? I could master this year. And so I joked about this before. Like one of the things I pride myself in is the fact that I've always had this commitment to being humble and asking for help. Who's better than me, and who's doing something better than me? Reaching out to that person and finding their genius, their expertise, stealing from the best with pride. I joke that there's never been an original thought in Cutco. Like everyone steals from everyone else, and the best steal from the best. There's put your ego aside and be committed to getting the information, even if it means in a sense eating a slice of humble pie and be like, hey Sam, like you're better at this than me, even though like there's all these areas I'm better at than you. Like you're better at me than me in this area, and like I'm committed to getting better in this area. So like, can you help me? Can you teach me like what you found to be the key to that?
Yeah, and that's one of the common traits or aspects that I've noticed between all top performers is they're able to really just say, hey, I'm humble, and there's always something to learn. Absolutely. And never the fear of like getting out of their comfort zone to ask for help.
Absolutely.
So your trajectory, went from 100 and something thousand to the next year. Like, it wasn't like boom to boom. It was like boom,
it was like 180, 200, 230, 300, 390, 430, 550.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool is some people think like in sales they're going to have this automatic shoot to the top or I quit. It's like, I thought I was going to be like the best at this. And it's like, no, you've had this journey of mastery over the last few years, and we're going to dive into that. We're also going to dive into, if you're listening to this podcast, we're going to dive into systems that he's done to maintain a customer base and follow up with that. And then we're going to dive into how he does shows. So if you're listening to this, he's mastered how he does fair shows and different trade shows and things like that to sell his knives. So a lot of people in the off season that are listening to this, if they do summer sales, they're like, man, how could I make some extra bucks? Shows are really profitable, and a lot of the door-to-door industry has shied away from doing booths and shows, and like, it's not worth my money to go spend $500 on a booth when I could be going out and knocking doors. But you've kind of shifted, and you're like, man, I could contact and sell way more business in a show than trying to do in-home demos, demo after demo after demo, right?
Absolutely.
So hopefully in this podcast we can kind of give some different perspective to the door-to-door industry on how to leverage some shows, which would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
So let's kind of rewind back to your journey. One of the questions I have that a lot of people in door-to-door or direct sales get into is they're like, man, when am I going to get a real job? Right?
Absolutely, right.
They're like, oh, when are you going to like stop selling knives and like do something like, you know, what college grads do? Grown-up job, right? I'm sure you've gotten that a lot.
Absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about your philosophy on commitment to the journey and how that's played out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a mentor of mine once taught me that the grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. The grass is greener where you water it. And so for me, like, there's been multiple times in my Cutco career over the last 8 years that I've seriously contemplated quitting, like taking interviews at other jobs. What I always came back to was, where can I create a better lifestyle? Like asking myself, like, you know, typically a lot of times when we want to quit, or is usually when there's a lot of frustration or adversity that we're facing, where we're like, you know what, I'm over this, like I'm burned out of this industry, like I want to go do this sales, because like I'm sure they don't deal with that. It's a higher ticket item, so I don't have to have as many small sales, this and that, like this and another thing. What I'm here to tell you is that it doesn't matter what sales you're in, you're always going to have the same adversity. It's just going to package itself in different ways. And so for me, I was really honest with myself. I'm like, cool. So like, what is it that I'm really unhappy with? And then like when it came down, I was like, well, I don't like when I'm in slow times. Like, cool. So like, what can I do to just take this slow time and put some systems in place where that can be, I can travel during that time, or I can take off, or I can do a show in a different area that I haven't maybe thought about, or where can I expand my business, so that way I have, like, there's opportunities that I maybe wasn't exploring because they weren't low-hanging fruit. So getting creative with that, and then realizing that, like, if I keep bouncing around from sales job to sales job, I'll always be a salesman versus a CEO. And so like I see my business is like Kinzer Enterprises is like, Cutco is my main enterprise right now. And my goal is to build my book of business to a point where I can leverage that book of business, where I have over close to 5,500 customers now that I can consistently market to and add value to, that then end up being repeat business that I don't have to work for anymore. Like I've done the time, I've put in the time and the effort and the energy in the trenches, so to speak, like paying my dues to earn this book of business, and now I want to work the book of business. Yeah,
it's like treating yourself not as a sales rep, but as a CEO, 1099, true 1099 employee, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like in order to really embody, like, this is my customer base, I think a lot of people fail to do that because they're like door to the next door to the next door, just one more sale down. You'll always maintain a salesperson, you'll get burnt out, and you'll probably then start to look for other aspects of growth. But if your trajectory is like, how big can I build my book of business? That is your growth.
That is.
And that's absolutely you stepping into the CEO role of Kinzer Enterprises, as you said.
Absolutely.
That's powerful. So talk to me a little bit about some of the things that you've done to help you center back to, like, okay, let's just keep watering here, when you've had those job interviews and the temptations and the recruiting offers, and other companies come in and are like, no, you're a killer salesman, come here, and you're like, ooh, that's shiny. So what are some of the things you do to like center back and like kind of refocus, get back aligned with the vision?
For me, it's always I always ask the question of like, what is my lifestyle like there, right? So like I know a lot of times I think the thing that tempts salespeople the most is the thought of variety. It's the thought of something, a new challenge. Like, oh, I've been doing this. I want a new, like I know what to expect this year with Cutco. Like I know I'm going to do this many shows. I'm going to do this marketing, this sale. Like I know what to expect. I'll sell at least this much worth of that. Like my income, like I can. It's in a sense it's kind of steady. So it's in a sense like usually after 2, 3, 4 years we start to get almost bored with it, and we think, oh, like what I'm looking for is the next challenge. But what you're actually really searching for is to be like, you're not feeling challenged in your current role. And so like for me, like I found that challenge in personal development. It's like, how can I get better at my process? How can I become a deeper master? It's like there's so many sales reps that in your industry, maybe it's like I've sold 250 alarms for the last 5 summers in a row. It's like like I don't think it's possible for me to get to 400 because like I knock every door. So like my challenge to people is, cool, well, like how often do you go back and refine your sales process? How often do you go and cross-train with the best person in the industry that's selling 400 alarms? And
add new lines to your presentation.
Spice it up.
Mix up different closes. And like, oh man, if I tweak this and maybe put this in front of this.
And track your results. Like for me, it's always like, I find the master, follow the model. It's like I find the person who's the very best at upselling in my business, and I'm like, I'm going to go be a student of his for this month, for these 2 months, for these 3 months, where it's like I'm like committed to listening to audios that he's recorded. I'm committed to cross training with him for a week, where I'm watching his process. I'm committed to like stealing his very, very best practices and making them my own. So it's like I don't become him, but I take the best parts of him and I integrate that into my own personality and into my own flair. And so it's like, for me, the challenge is, hey, how can I not work more this year? How can I work maybe the same amount or even less and sell more? Yeah. Or, it's like if you're in a season of life where you can work more, like how can I work more, but not just work harder, but also smarter?
Yeah,
how can I
efficient.
be that much more efficient? Where it's like, I'm going to show up to this trade show. I'm going to be there for 12 hours today, regardless of how good I am. I could talk to 10 people and sell, 3 of them. I could talk to 10 people and sell 7 of them. The difference is like, as I just always am holding up a mirror to myself and saying like, hey, if I'm being really honest today, did I do my very best? Hey, if I'm being really honest today, like if I had a better skill, like do I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, like nobody, like the best person could have been talking to that person and they wouldn't have closed them because I know like my skill set's on par with their skill set. So I'm always challenging myself of like, is my skill set to a point where it's like I don't have to wonder like, should I have sold 10 grand a day when I only sold 5 grand? Like I'm like, I know, like I maximized every single person I had in front of me. There's no more sales I could have gotten out of that, or there's no more upsells I could have gotten out of that, because I did my process the very best.
And the worst feeling is the opposite of that. When you're like, crap, if this guy were here, he would have freaking closed twice as many. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And that's like a frustrating feeling, and it's like, that's mastery, is like working towards where you feel like, man, I milked the crap out of this.
Right, exactly. Like there's like, it doesn't matter if the best person in my industry was here, they would have gotten the same results. Maybe they wouldn't have gotten as good a results as me, because like I'm so committed to mastery. Like I've taken the best from them, I'm taking the best from this person, the best from this person. So like maybe I'm even ahead of them, in a sense. And so that for me is like, there's been 3 or 4 very influential people in my company that I've really milked like the best practices from them over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And every year I commit to like a new a new area I'm going to refine. So like this year I'm going back to like one of my basic principles, where it's like, hey, how can I close new customers extremely effectively? Where if I talk to 10 new customers, I'm closing 70 to 80% of them versus 50 to 60%.
Yeah.
Because I know that is going to be the next shift, where I'm going to see, I'll do the same amount of work, the same amount of shows I did last year, and my sales are going to go from 550 to 800 this year.
So let's kind of shift gears. One of the things that you briefly mentioned was the follow-up and the upsell.
Yeah.
So in our industry, we fail to do any of that. It's I sold them, never want to talk to them again, and I hope they never see me again. And it's a mentality a lot of people in door-to-door get, which is like terrible if you're thinking about from a sales perspective. You're like, so are you like not feel like you're not aligned with what you're selling or how you sold it or whatever? But I think one of the things that you've really done well is you can say, I have 5,500 customers and I know how to upsell them. I know how to master getting more business out of them.
Yeah.
And if we think about it, like I probably have thousands of alarm accounts, personal accounts. I have hundreds of solar accounts, and it's like, man, I don't ever talk to them ever. But how much more business could I get from them in upsells?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Reorders and additional service add-ons and things like that. So talk to me a little bit about what's your process like. Okay, so you sold somebody, they bought a few knives. Then what?
Yeah. So the big thing is I think as salespeople, like especially like there was for me there was a lot of like, oh my gosh, I've missed out on so much opportunity because I just started doing this like 3 years ago. I've been doing Cutco for 8 years. I'm like, oh, I wish I had started at the beginning. Like I'm like, you gotta let go of that thought and like I just need to start now, right? So for me it was like I found a system, a CRM system that I could like that could function within my company. So it's like for some people it's like actually going out and creating that. Like maybe that doesn't exist in the current marketplace. It actually didn't. Like I influenced one of my friends in the business who's extremely good at marketing. His wife was a marketing major. Like I influenced them to basically build out and start a company that like helps Cutco salespeople market to their customers. Long story short, we built out the CRM. They built out the CRM, and they now help me create content emails that are adding value to my customers. Every single month, I send out a content email. I do three. Like I have planned marketing campaigns where it's like I send out a sale once in the spring, once in the summer, once in the fall. I send out a fall catalog,
you're
Christmas
sale
catalog.
going on.
Yeah, and it's like what's great about this though is that it's like my customers aren't just hearing from me when I want to sell them more stuff. They're
It's
hearing
once
from
a
me.
month.
They're hearing from me. Like I'm providing consistent value that adds value to their experience within the product. Like it's like I'm like. And then I also coach them on how to receive my marketing. Like at the end of my transaction, I'm like, hey, by the way, Sam, like I'm going to be your Cutco guy. I'm going to be the guy that takes care of you in the future when you need help with sharpening and service. I'm going to be the guy that takes care of you when you guys want to add on and get gifts for friends and family or add on to your own collection. Which, by the way, like I'm really excited that you guys decided to make the investment today. By the way, like how I keep in touch with my customers, I just send out one email a month. It has like recipes, tips on the knives, like basically like fun facts on like the month of October, right? And they're always really fun, value-added, content emails. So definitely make sure to save my information in your contact book, so that way, like, I don't get sent to junk mail. Because I promise you, they're not sales related at all. It's like I just want to help you get the best experience from the product you invested in today.
And most people by that point are like, yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly. Well, and what's great is like I get people that come back year after year. They're like, oh, by the way, like I love that email. Like I used that recipe you sent me the other day. Or hey, by the way, like I don't need anything right now, but thanks so much for sending these emails. Like they're awesome. And what's great is that I'm building this fan base. It's not based around Cutco so much as it's built around Cutco Seth, my personal brand. Where it's like they're like I have a relationship with them now. Where it's like they're the easiest people to sell to because one of the biggest obstacles for a sale is trust. And I already have not only do they have trust in my product, because a lot of customers I acquire are people that already own my product and I'm selling them more of it, right? So they already had trust in the Cutco product. They already knew it was awesome. That's why they chose to invest in more into it. But now they have trust in buying with me as a salesperson.
Yeah, because you don't know where you're going to be in 10 years.
Right.
I mean, you might be selling real estate and you're like, well, all my customers are in this town, and if I go do real estate, I've already got an email list way big, and I can just, hey,
exactly.
Hey, remember me? I just switched industry. Just thought I'd let you guys know. So if you ever need this or whatever, and I think people undervalue the fact that we've made a transaction happen, which is the hardest part.
Absolutely.
Now they trust you because they were willing to spend money with you,
and they like you. It's like 9 times out of 10, like they had a positive interaction with you. That's why they trusted you, and they put their trust in you by doing business with you.
And it's like, why do we throw that to waste? I'm not even kidding. You'd be mind blown. I have not seen one door-to-door rep in any industry do any kind of follow-up, and it's just because they're lazy probably, or they don't have the tools or CRM. Like you said, you set up a CRM type thing. Now, is that automated or is that
So it's something that I focus on it. I focus on it once a campaign. So 3 times a year, I'm focused on basically planning out what content I'm going to be sending my customers and what sales emails I want to send, what value-added emails I want to send, if there's a product announcement that's coming out, when I want to send that. So basically, I plan out, and then within a sale, I'll send out a last call reminder, and I plan all this stuff at the beginning of the campaign. So now I don't have to figure out anything else. Like I'm like, that is done.
Yeah, you sit down for a couple hours, nail it out.
Exactly. And
put
then,
it on auto.
And then I have an assistant that like goes in and executes it. But that's it. I mean, it's very simple. It's like I automate it so that way like I'm really not good at that. So what I did is I found an expert in that industry and I hired them for their expertise. So I think a lot of times we put the burden on ourselves, like, oh, I got to create this content email. And I'm like, I know I'm never going to do that. That's not my expertise. My expertise is selling the product. So I'm going to leverage my money and my resources to then help me create more of a buy-in from my customers, so that they're loyal. Like my customers if they come up to an event booth in my territory and I'm not there, they're like, "Where's Cutco Seth? Like he's our guy." And a lot of times like they won't even buy from somebody else. Or like if I'm there, like they'll sit there and wait for me 20, 30 minutes to interact with me versus to just make a purchase with somebody else. Which they could easily like they could get the same deal from that person. But they're like, no, like he's our guy, like we want to talk to him. And they enjoy the interaction and the fun because of the buy-in that I've gotten and the value I've added to their life. They want to be loyal to me because of that.
So how do you set up your admin? Like how much do you pay her? How often does she work? What other things does she or he do? Yeah,
so big thing is like it's a lot of times you can get it for even cheaper than this. Like I pay her $20 an hour. She's a badass, and she like I know if I give her a task, like it's done. So for me, like I'm always encouraging people like spend money on things that make you money. Systemize your business so that way you're not running like a mom and pop shop.
And like, you're paying that. You're not waiting for the company to be like, "Hey, Cutco, hire me an admin."
Exactly.
It's like you found it's worth that money to take a lot of the things off your plate, like 100%. This email campaign.
100%. And it's like, I know every dollar I put back into my business pays me out fivefold. Every single time I found that to be true. And so for these guys that are like, well, where do I start? I'm like, to get a basic CRM. Like it doesn't have to be something crazy. Like you don't have to go get the very best. Like get something and get started with it, because take imperfect action would be my encouragement. Is like just start somewhere. Hire your younger sister or whatever. At this point, it's like
write up some emails.
Like go to a college and like go to the level 400 marketing team and like be like, hey, who's your A student, right? Grab that person, hire them for $15 an hour.
Or there's Upwork, like anybody that hasn't used Fiverr, Upwork, some of these like outsourcing companies.
Do something like that that's like as simple as easy, and they're like what if I don't do it right? Like you can't do it wrong. You're not doing it at all. That's the only way you can do something wrong is doing nothing, because you want to wait till you have the perfect plan. Yeah. Taking action is way 100% better, because imperfect action, it's like right now you're not interacting with your customers at all. Yeah. Imagine if you got a 5% response, exactly. Right? Like even 5%, like that's huge. It's just free money. And like there are people that have had such positive interactions with you, they like you so much that they would give you referrals, that it's like you probably wouldn't even have to it wouldn't even be like a hard close. Like you could probably even do it over the phone where you're like, hey, listen, like Janine had a lot of really nice things to say about you. Like you seem really badass. Like I need this system as well. What are we gonna do? Right? It's like you leave this community, and like maybe there was like 5 or 6 people that were like, oh man, if they had come by, like I would have bought. Yeah. And they never did. Yep. Like I can't 100%. Tell you the number of people that I talked to that are like, oh yeah, like I was surprised my nephew never called me just like when he was selling Cutco, and I'm like,
so
that's crazy. Insane, right? And like
crazy.
There was like an uncle of mine that like I never I was like, oh, I don't know if he's gonna like if he would buy it or not, so like I didn't show him, and then he ran into somebody else and bought, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what a lost opportunity, because and those exist. Like there's so much low hanging fruit out there that we don't even know about, that it's like if you simply asked, you would get these recommendations. And I think a lot of times we ask for the recommendation maybe once, and then like we never ask again. Or it's like hey, like you get 5 recommendations. Hey, by the way, like who's the most likely to buy? And then like the other she gives you 2 or 3 that are really likely to buy, and then you're like, cool, I'm gonna follow up with them. I don't have time to follow up with all 5. I don't throw these other 3 in my CRM system. I'm gonna market to them. And the off chance that like all of a sudden they're like, hey, awesome. By the way, like there was a break-in in our neighborhood. I need a security system. Yeah. What are they going to do? They're like, if they don't have you, they're going to go online and Google security systems. They're going to sign up for one.
100%.
Yeah.
So let's kind of shift gears. This is awesome. So if you're listening to this, follow Seth Kinzer or share this with somebody that needs it. Like it. And yeah, I kind of want to like shift gears for the last topic, because I'm just like nuggets everywhere. Like nugget, cool. So I appreciate this. So the last thing I wanted to jam on was how you do shows, how to effectively set up a show, your best practices running a show, and how to mine the most out of that show.
Yeah. So when it comes to events, I've found that it's like there can be a lot of stress involved in it unless you're just like, cool, I'm going to sit down and do the things necessary. So you could show up to the event and be like, oh crap, I need this. Oh crap, I need that. Or you could sit down for an hour and be like, what? Like, I'm going to do my setup. And I do a setup. Like, I make sure that my setup's complete. So now I go to the show and I'm like, boom, I'm set up. My booth looks professional. Like, I found like every time I invest more money in like my booth display and making it look better, like when our event program in Cutco like first started, it was like basically like a coffee table with like a little thing, like a tablecloth thrown over. It looked like crap, right? It did not, like, it was like a mom and pop shop. And like now I have like a professional display. Like I have these nice display boards that are like, plexiglass over them. Like I've done a lot of things to make my product look really expensive and really high end, because it is, like, from the get-go. Like they walk up, they're like, wow, like I have customers on a regular basis go, wow, this looks really expensive. I'm like, yes. I've done my job yes. Right. Like you're already framed nice knives. You're already framed in. Like, you're right. This is a really high quality product. I'm like, but let me show you the value behind it. Let me they're already thinking, they're not coming up thinking like, oh, like, is this block set like $50? I'm like, no, that's $4,000, right, or whatever it is. So the like, you could spend $10,000 with me today at the booth and get like, and that would get you like one of everything, right? Like some people, like, they walk up with the wrong perception, and like ever since I've like, the more and more I upgrade my booth, the less and less I get that, where like people like in a sense, like a low quality prospect will walk up and be like, yo, like, I know I can't afford this stuff. Like they just know from looking at it. I'm like, well, I mean, you might be surprised, but, and I'll go into my pitch with them, but it's like, and most of the time they're not qualified. But yeah. The big thing for me is like with trade shows, like how I've gotten better and better at them is like is taking like the front end prep, like getting, like, making sure I'm like equipped and ready to do the show. And then like a big thing too is like being energy rich throughout it. Like they're long hours, and a lot of times if you don't have a product, like I have a very widely recognized product that it's like I get a lot of customers that'll approach me at the booth, right? Sometimes you just like, you got to be the person that's engaging the person, like hooking him in. Like I found trade shows, like if you especially if it's like a home show, right? Having like a little game that engages somebody, like gets them to come over. Having, it's like sometimes having candy like works, but it's like,
what's your game? What's your preferred game? What's your game of choice?
Yeah, I was gonna say, so like for me, like people come over, but it's like I see like, like even like having, there was this ball once that you like throw it up in the air and like it would spread out, and it was yellow and it was black, right? And like literally, like it was hilarious, the reaction of people. It's like, all of a sudden, like, you have to sign up for their thing, like a free drawing. Oh, we have a free drawing for a $50,000 thing. That means nothing to them. But there was this really cool, it wasn't a gimmicky thing, it was a cool toy that like kids wanted, right? And even parents were like entertained by it. So like, they're like, what do I need to do to get this thing? Like, you got to sign up for this thing. And they're like, and I always joke about this. I'm like, when it comes to like parents getting something for their kids, they're like, Social Security number, like, what do I need to put? Like, they're like, oh, I'll give you whatever you need. So like doing stuff like that creates involvement and engagement, where it's like, there are people are like, where'd you get that? I'm like, oh, over at the Vivint booth, or over at the Solstice booth, like over at the Cutco booth. Like for me, it's like, for me, I'm more about like, I'm always scanning like, hey, I just saw their eyes light up because they recognize the Cutco brand, and I'll go like, oh, do you guys own Cutco? Like, oh my gosh, you got to sign our happy customer list. Right, because like we have raving fans, like a reason to stop them, right? And be like, oh, hey, by the way, like just so you know, like we have a whole bunch of new products that have come out recently. Is it okay if I give you like the 2-minute update? Being really excited about it, and being like, and it's like a service that I do for my customers. I give them the 2-minute update, and really, I'm showing them products that I want to sell them. But it's like, from their standpoint, they're like,
2-minute update.
Yeah, cool. Like, yeah, like, well, like, what's new? And then like they're open and receptive to like receiving me. So a lot of times it's. There's a lot of reps that are sitting there on their phone. They think they're engaged because like, oh yeah, if somebody comes up, I'll put my phone down. People walk by, like I see Cutco reps all the time where like they're like, I'll hear from customers. They're like, yeah, sometimes we'll have multiple booths at an event. They're like, yeah, we walked by the other Cutco booth and they were like all sitting on their phone in the back, like and sitting down on their phones.
And you're just like,
and I'm like, and they're like, you guys are like engaged, like ready to go, like you smiled at us, like you engaged us right away. They're like, man, you should like give them some tips. I'm like, yeah, they're on my team. I should. Like, I need to like yell at them and tell them to get off their phone, because like we don't realize how often, like if you're looking down on your phone, like how, like what you're missing that's walking by. Yeah. And
pay attention to all the little nonverbal cues.
Yeah, there's so many different times. Like some of these customers will like try not to make eye contact with you because they're like, oh man, like I could probably use that product, or like a lot of times like
They feel bad looking because they're like, I know I'll buy if I stop.
Yeah, exactly. Like the customers are like, they know their tendencies. They also know like a good salesman, like when they see one, and like, and also there's even like there's these perceptions about salespeople sometimes too, where they're like, oh, like if I engage with them, then he's gonna like make me buy something I don't need. And it's like I believe that everyone needs my product so strongly that I'm like, I'm gonna engage with you, and if it's not received, like that's okay, but it's like I'm not gonna give you a reason or an excuse not to engage with me. So paying attention, being like in an energy rich and in a mindset is like it only takes one or two. It's like you wouldn't walk up and knock on a door and then like pull your phone out and be like playing on it until they come to the door, right? You're going to be sitting there ready to engage the person in an interactive conversation, making them laugh, doing things like. If we're at a state fair where people are walking around with beer, I'm like, hey, you drunk enough to buy knives yet? Stuff like that, like things that like, just, like asking something that breaks their pattern versus just like the normal, like, hey, how's it going? Like things that are like, oh, hey, how's the beer? Looks good. Like nice and cold. Like, oh, looks like you're almost gone. Like your beer's almost gone. Like free beer with every purchase, stuff like that, where it's like, it's things that are going to engage the customer, that are going to be different than like the stereotypical thing. For something like yours, where it might be like signups, it's like, I don't know what's your guys' sales process if you would actually, sell at the booth, but it's like for us, like we found that we used to have this limiting belief behind like, oh, like we have such a high-end product, like customers wouldn't buy it there at the booth. Like customers won't make a $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 purchase.
Yeah, a lot of people think they have to set up an appointment.
Yeah, like that used to be how we ran it. Like that's how our program started like 25 years ago, and like we sold zero at the booth. Like to like the evolution of that to this year, like last year we sold $25 million just at the booth at events that we did, nationwide in the U.S.
Wow.
And that 100% came from somebody having the idea of like, why, like I'm here and they're here. Why wait? Like, who knows if the husband and wife are going to be together? Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, show me. Like also, like, I can see 100 people today at this show, 1,000 people at this show, and engage with them. People, like, sometimes people just want to sign up. Like, sometimes they don't have the time to do it right then. Sure, grab the lead, follow up with them, put them in your CRM system, like, market to them, like, create value. So that way, like, now, like, I've started doing this even when, like, a customer is, like, really interested in my product, but for whatever reason the timing's not right. I've done everything in my power to close them. I'll be like, hey, why don't you do this? Like, jot your information down on my future customer list. Like, I know, like, I've already invested the time to get them acquainted with it. Like, they're gonna want to make this purchase in the future.
Okay, so pause. You're listening to this. You're knocking doors. How powerful would that be after you've given them like the 10 tries and they're still like, not right now. Hey, let me get your info and I'll put you on my future customer list and market to them. Because I guarantee you, because I've knocked the same area 4 years in a row, like with alarms, and I did literally back to back to back. I'm like, I'm back, and they bought.
Right.
And I'm like, I could have probably got that sale without knocking on their door, because they were like, yeah, we wanted to get it last year, it just was bad timing, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I made them wait a full year. They might have been ready in 3 months.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and not only that, but like, think about this: like, a sale comes in, and you're like, oh, that was for work I did 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Like, you already did the work. Like capturing their information is so, like, if they're like, because here's the thing, somebody that's not really serious about your product won't give you their information. They're like, no, like, we're good, right? Like, most of the time, like, especially when you're an expert salesman and you handle their objections in the best way possible, like,
they'll still give you it.
Like, they're like, yeah, like, no, like, this is something we definitely want. Like, we're just on the market. Yeah, we're on the market for it right now. Or like, as soon as we move, or as soon as this happens or this happens, we're gonna call you. And it's like, well, do you have a card? And I'm like, here, listen, you're gonna lose my information. Let me just do this. Let me grab your information. Like, I'll keep in touch with you. I'm not gonna spam you or anything. Like, all my stuff is value added. Like, I just send out one email a month. Like, you can deal with one email, right? By the way, you can always unsubscribe if you want to, but I promise you, like, I'm going to deliver value that'll be fun and cheesy, and like you'll get a laugh out of it.
And they're like, okay,
yeah,
it's powerful. And I just think so many people in our industry, I have not found one. And I'm like, man, what if I would have sold 50 more? How much would have that been worth to me? What if I would have done X more? Like, just simply from referrals that came in via digital marketing and emails and whatever you do. You could do so many things with that. So if you're listening or watching this, like, this was a unique spin and some new perspective that really Cutco over the last, 100 years?
70, 75.
Yeah, I mean, they're some of the masters of, recruiting, building teams, running events, and, you're selling a knife that's, worth the price, but it's not your typical Walmart knife that you're going to spend $20 on. You're spend $200 on one knife. I have Cutco, I love it. And So anyway, like if you were to give, just to kind of wrap things up, one piece of advice to the direct selling industry, what would that one piece be?
Start with imperfect action today. It's like if you're not the master you want to be in sales, instead of trying to become the master overnight, start by mastering one thing in your industry. Start by becoming committed to a process of never-ending growth. It's like your business can't grow more than you can, so start by investing in yourself and growing yourself. And then as that just keep layering it. It's like for me, how I've grown every single year with the same schedule, the same the same amount of work. It's not like I've worked harder. It's every year I've been like, hey, how can I get a little bit more efficient? How can I get a little bit better? So my piece of advice is invest in yourself and your growth, and then be committed to that, never ending, unceasingly, relentlessly be committed to your growth and your expansion. And that's going to look like a lot of different things to different people. It could be a skill set. It could be marketing. It could be, getting a CRM system. It could just but the biggest thing is start now.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. So thank you so much for being on the show, dude.
Yeah, bro.
We're out here in Guatemala. For any of you guys watching this, we're literally, and you probably hear the soccer players in the background, chasing the ball and stuff. But literally, we're in Guatemala filming this right now. If you're listening to it, obviously you didn't see that. But we have the black sand beaches behind us right now. And what more abundant place to do this in Guatemala? Love it. Okay, thanks, brother.